Okay, so good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want to ask everyone if they could please change your names to your first name, your surname, and your graduating class. And if you have not graduated yet, the class you intend to graduate with. So my name is Chanela Mwale. I'm from Zambia, pronouns she, her, and I'm an IB1 who joined Waterford Kamhlaba this year, embarking on my IB journey, and I will be your host for this speaker series. I would like to begin this Alumni University panel by sharing a warm Kamhlaba welcome to everyone joining us. Joining us today, we have Mbalentle Ngwenya from Canada, Thomas Farrell from the Netherlands, Felice Zwane from South Africa, Phoebe O'War from the United Kingdom, Aye Asamoah Manu, Tamalangeni Dlamini, and Namambo Mwale, all from the United States of America. Hello, Sanibonani, halo, dumelang, sabona to our esteemed guests. A few key things to note is that may our guests stay muted for the duration of the Zoom. We want to limit distractions and utilize the time provided as our alumni are busy people. The Zoom will be recorded and will be available on the Waterford Kamhlaba YouTube channel. And there will be a Q&A at the end of the Zoom to conclude the session. A warm welcome to our very own Mr. Storer, who I'm sure you all have heard of, our admissions officer and careers advisor. Over to you, Mr. Storer.
Thank you very much, Chanela. So my job mainly is to welcome you all as well and say it's really good to see some graduates from 2022 here. We're so proud of your achievements, both while you were at Waterford and also with the lovely university decisions and offers you've been getting. Please remember to take your time. You've got at least another 2 weeks to make decisions about where you want to go. And hopefully this session this evening will be really useful to you. We're also joined by a number of current IB2s because we really think this is a wonderful opportunity for you to sort of get a head start in terms of hearing about making the transitions from Kamhlaba to wherever you might find yourself next year. And last but not least, our panelists, thank you so much for taking the time. It's lovely to see you all with your cameras on and your faces. I really hope you've enjoyed the first year at college, whether you're in the Netherlands, in Canada, in the US, or in South Africa. Thank you so much for giving up your time to give back in this way. We used to do this alumni panel every summer, sort of, well, Northern Hemisphere summer, kind of June, July time when graduates had come back to Eswatini, and we did it in person, but it's really nice to be able to do it at any time of year, at any time of day online in this way. So thank you so much for giving back in this way. And to our current students and our recent graduates, please be aware that as soon as I've given my very brief introduction, I will be leaving the call, mainly so that you can feel totally free and open to ask any questions that you may feel are still burning with you. There are no silly questions. The students that you'll hear from tonight, the graduates that you'll hear from tonight will give it to you as it really is. Hopefully it's kind of in line with what I'm advising you and telling you, but they're really here to give you the real lowdown, both for those of you in IB2 still contemplating what your choices are, and those of you in IB3 that have got to close to the end of the process and now need to make some important decisions. So thank you very much, Janella, for hosting. Thank you to the Advancement Office team. Thank you to Andy Foos, who's also here, and everybody that's been involved in putting this together. I do appreciate this venture, this initiative. I think it's a really important part of the program that we can offer to our students. So thank you, Janella.
Thank you so much, Mr. Storer. Additionally, on our call today, we have Mr. Andrew Foos, WK alumnus and Vice Chair of the Governing Council, who will speak to us about American Friends. Over to you, Mr. Foos.
Great, thank you, and welcome everyone. I want to thank the Advancement Office for inviting me to join you very briefly. Most of the evening is going to be far more important than what I'll share, but I did want to put on a different hat today, and that is as a board member of the American Friends of Waterford Kamhlaba. This is a group that has existed in the US since the 1980s, but primarily has been a passive recipient of donations on behalf of the school in order to give the donors tax breaks. But But recently, a number of alumni, including myself and some from the early 2000s, have joined the board of Waterford, the American Friends of Waterford Kamhlaba. And our goal is really twofold. One is to make the fundraising side of the American Friends work much more active to try to be able to raise much more money for the school. But the piece that we really want to stress for you folks today is that we're also looking to build an alumni network in the US, partly because we have all come from Waterford Kamhlaba and gone to the US university, and we know the challenges that can come with that. And we want to make sure that whoever is interested, if they're in the US, knows that there are people they can reach out to for a handful of purposes. One, just to call and shoot the breeze. If you're feeling a little homesick, or you want to talk about sports in the region, or you just need someone who will get it when you say, boy, my university food is so much better than the dining hall, great. We want you to have that network of people to call. Secondly, we're trying to build a network of people who are willing to host WK alumni. So let's say you have a long weekend and you don't have plans, but you could reach out to alumni and say, wow, Andy, I would love to come to Washington, DC. Are you available? Do you have space for me? And I'll say, of course, our door is always open, come on down. So we'll have a network of people you might be able to reach out to should you need a place to stay. And then third, and this will take us some time, but we're also going to build a network of alums that you can reach out to, mostly for mentorship or connections or advice around internships, or maybe someone's in a career that you're really curious about and you'd like to pick their brain about what it would be like moving into that field. So we'd really like the American Friends of Waterford Kamhlaba to be, in essence, a regional advancement office that helps you support each other and helps the American Friends reach out to you and give back in ways that we can now that we couldn't before. I think that's as much as makes sense to share tonight, because your program is so critical. But what I will do is I will drop my email in the chat, so that if anyone has questions or wants to express interest in connecting with the American Friends, you can just email me, because I'd be more than happy to share info with you. And I guess the last thing to keep in mind for those who are in the US or will be later this year, we are going to hope to have at least a few regional functions to celebrate the school's 60th anniversary. So there may be some opportunities to get together with alumni in, let's say, Washington, DC, New York, maybe Chicago area. So we're going to do our best to pull something together like that too. But thanks very much. Good luck with your decisions. And I wish you all the best as you move forward. Take care.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andrew Foods. Everyone, please look out in the chat for his email. So now may we please have our panelists introduce themselves, tell us what universities you attend, what you major in, and a cute fun fact about your university. Mbalentle, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi, my name is Mbali. I graduated from WK in 2021, and I attend the University of Toronto. Fun fact about this campus is that there are three. So there's one in Scarborough. I attend the one in Mississauga, and there's one downtown Toronto, the St. George campus. And I'm in my first year studies. So the first year in most Canadian universities is more about general studies in the field that you would like to get into. So I hope to specialize in digital enterprise management in my second year. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mbali. Can we please have Ayeyi next?
All right, hi everyone. Nice to see you here today. My name is Ayeyi. I'm a current freshman at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and I'm part of the graduating class of 2021. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm originally from Ghana. And I think a fun fact about my university, and particularly about the campus, is that we have the biggest stadium in the United States, not even just for college stadiums, college stadia rather, but in general. And what we refer to it as the big house. And that's one of our shining glories here at the University of Michigan. I'm currently a freshman in undeclared engineering. I'm in the College of Engineering, as we would call it here. but we start as similar to Mbali, we started very general before we began to declare in sophomore year. So I'm looking to do civil engineering in my sophomore year with a minor in public planning and policy. And I'm very happy to be here, very happy to chat about all of those experiences in this panel today.
Thank you so much. Namambo, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Namambo Mwale, class of 2019, which feels like forever now. I attend Lake Forest College, just an hour outside Chicago, and I am a double major in politics, a concentration in global politics, as well as economics with a concentration in finance. A fun fact about Lake Forest that I didn't know before coming. Let me think. I think one of the things that I enjoy the most is that we have a beach that's about 15 minutes walk away from our campus. And it's really lovely. It's free to the students, the stores. And my favorite part about being at Lake Forest is just being able to walk down to the beach, obviously not in winter. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Namambo. Tamalangeni, may you please introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Dema. I'm from the Kingdom of Eswatini. I attend the University of Oklahoma. I am a biomedical engineering major and I'm a sophomore. I graduated from WK in 2020. And a fun fact about the University of Oklahoma is we have won the Davis Cup for 2 years in a row now, the years that I've been here. And this is basically recognition to those who have the largest number of UWC students on their campus. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tama. Phoebe, may you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe. I graduated in 2021, and I'm currently at the London School of Economics and Political Science. A fun fact about LSE is it only offers social sciences. So it doesn't just offer economics and political science, but also philosophy, finance, just things in that nature. And I study a BA in anthropology and law.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. Thomas, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Farrell. I'm initially from South Africa, but have lived in Swaziland prior to moving here for probably about 5 years. And I'm now studying in the Netherlands at Maastricht University, which is a university in the south of the Netherlands. I'm currently studying economics, so I'm at the business school as a part of the university. And I'd say an interesting fact about the university is that we don't have any residences for the university. So everyone lives within the city of Maastricht and everyone gets around using bikes, which is quite cool and quite fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And last but not least, Felicia.
Hi everyone. Once again, my name is Felicia Zwane. I am from the Kingdom of Eswatini. I am currently studying at the University of Cape Town. I graduated with my undergrad 2022, doing a double major in politics, politics and governance and law. And now I'm doing my postgraduate studies, pursuing an LLB. A fun fact about UCT, I mean, I guess I could say we've held the ranking of being the #1 university in Africa for the past 3 years now. So I guess that's great. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to talking more about my experiences here and my journey here thus far.
Thank you so much, Felicia, and to the rest of the panelists. I want to throw out another question to the panelists. Could you all please share a quick experience about how your transition into university was like? Aye, why don't you start us off?
So I think my transition to university was definitely a long-winded one. I think it had its challenges, it had its highs, it had its lows. I think right from end of IB1, when you're considering what universities you want to go into, IB2, by the time you finally solidify your list, before you begin applying, before you begin financial aid, once you receive an offer, and then you begin visa applications. I do remember it being just a long journey, but I think it's been one that's also been extremely fulfilling. I think now that I'm nearing the end of my freshman year, I think it's just definitely been a journey that has reached a fruitful end. I think I'm feeling quite satisfied with where I am, feeling quite loved and welcomed here in my university. And so I think if it had not been for the preparation that happened in the journey, understanding what I was going into, the type of course I was going into, if that had not taken place, my first year would not have been such an enjoyable experience as it was now. And so I think that's definitely how I describe it, but I think it's necessary for one to be able to enjoy the eventual university experience thereafter.
Thank you. That is really inspirational. Mbalenhle, would you care to say anything?
Yeah, sure. My transition into university has been quite interesting, I would say. I think it was required me to stay very open-minded to different things, different opportunities that may be presented to me. I think during my application process, I was so stuck up on one particular school, and sometimes you get disappointed and you don't get into the schools that you most likely want to get into. And that's going to happen, and you have to be prepared to receive that kind of news. But I think in me remaining open to different opportunities and different options, I managed to pick a school for me that really made me feel very comfortable. I didn't expect to feel so happy at my school. And so I'm really grateful that I remained open-minded to the different options that I had. And I would say that coming from IB, it has prepared me well for all the assignments that I've received thus far. It has taught me a lot about what my limits are academically and emotionally and physically. And so it's prepared me a lot for knowing what I can take while I'm at university, because while you're here, there's a lot of there are a lot of decisions that you make for yourself regarding how much course load you would like and all those kind of things. So I think it's prepared me a lot for dealing with that kind of pressure. So yeah.
Thank you, Mbali. You actually touched on a question that we wanted to ask in regards to how IB has helped everyone adjust and cope. But before we move on to that, I want to hear everyone's 2 cents on the current question. So Felice, do you have anything to add?
From my experience, what I could say, I think I'm also slightly going to touch on the IB question a little bit, because it does speak to the experience that I had transitioning from, IB and coming here to UCT. Honestly speaking, I think my transition was honestly better than I had expected it to be. I think initially when I come here in first year, I was very scared, apprehensive of what the environment is going to be like. It's a change, it's different people. And especially because a lot of my friends are going to the US. So it's only myself and one other person who chose to come to South Africa. So it was just about navigating that and like finding my place and where I fit in this new university space. But I found that, because of the experiences that I'd had in IB and WK at large, I found myself being able to, quickly, find my footing here. And the transition was not as terrible as I thought it was going to be, because you come in here first year, people also, I realized, were very open-minded, because we're all aware that, we're all coming from different places. It's a new experience for everyone. So I just think everyone was just willing to create an environment where everyone would be comfortable and have, the best possible chance, a best possible experience rather, when they got here. So I think, yeah, my transition was pretty good. It's pretty good, I must say.
It's really lovely to hear how everyone is settling into university. Thomas, what about you and transitioning to the Netherlands?
I think quite a few of the panelists already touched on the application process. So I initially also applied to the States and I applied to Netherlands just as a backup in a sense. And the States, the offers that I got back, I wasn't as pleased with. So I do think it is, as Mbali said, crucial to keep an open mind as you don't know what other opportunities there are. And I ended up here. It was a big culture shock. I won't lie to you. Very different, and you're not really in a residence either. So everyone's kind of living in like student houses or in apartments, etc. But then from there, as you get used to the place, I really enjoy it now, and it's really been an eye-opening experience for me. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. I think everyone has shared pretty much good insights on the question. So just to move on, did you guys already know what you wanted to major in, and did this influence your decision on which university to attend, or did you go into university with more of an open mind and just letting life take you wherever? Namambo, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I left Waterford, and I feel like lots of other students that attended UWC, I was absolutely certain that I wanted to go into diplomacy work. International relations is what like my mind was focused on. And when I was deciding between the schools I wanted to come to, I think one of the things about Lake Forest that appealed to me the most is they had an international relations course. However, they also had what they referred to as a self-design major course. And essentially what this entails is that I could come to the college and pick from different departments within the school to create a major that fit me the best. And I started on my international relations track. And when I was doing so, I ended up taking a course in economics. So just for a bit of background, when I was in IB, I did math studies. I was 100% certain that math is something I was never going to touch again. Was definitely not a fan. But I really did end up loving my econ class. Like I was obsessed with it. It's all I would talk about that entire semester. And I spoke to one of my advisors here and she was like, just keep going, see like what happens with it. And I ended up realizing maybe math isn't too bad. Maybe like if math is like econ and graphs, maybe I can do this. And that's how I ended up deciding to rework my major. I still wanted to add the political element to it, specifically the global aspect. So I switched from IR to global politics. And I added on the econ major. And I can't lie, the way that I've experienced learning economics and math and the manner in which it's taught here has made me appreciate economics more and have a more understanding of it from perspective that I'm interested in. And I think that is one of the beauties of a liberal arts education. My econ major is completely different from someone I'm sitting in class with because I'm able to take different courses and have the opportunity to like truly self-design the track of my econ course. And yeah, I guess that was my experience in that way.
All right, thank you. So the advice I'm gaining from that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that everyone should just be a bit more open-minded and allow university to do its thing, because you never know what can happen. So Tema, would you care to share anything, any insight you may have?
Like Namambo, I had an open mind, but in as much as I was open, I just knew I had a passion for like math and physics. So I chose engineering. Thankfully, to the liberal system, I had 1 year to decide what I wanted to do. So I took some math classes, some physics classes, And that sort of like cemented my decision that I actually want to go into engineering. And previously I had wanted to do medicine. So I was like, which engineering is closest to like medicine? And I chose biomedical engineering, and it has been very fulfilling from the get-go. So, but I've had people who changed their major. So I think choosing a major is quite crucial. Don't rush it. Take your time with it, because this is there gets a point where your passion will be the only thing that will keep you going, and your love for what you do is the only thing that will keep you going. So choose something that you really enjoy and you have time to choose it. Thankfully, I got a year to choose my major, and I chose biomedical engineering. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tema. I'm not sure if any of the other panelists have any other another outlook on this question. So if you do, please feel free to speak up. If not, we can move on to the next question.
I think I can chip in very quickly with this question. When I was in IB, as a preface, I believe, math, physics, and geography HL. And then I did econ, SL, and then English and French. And from there, I think when I was choosing my IB subjects, I was choosing it predominantly on the subjects that I was interested in, as one obviously does, and the subjects that I wanted to go into. And from there, I had a almost set vision that I wanted to go into some interchange of architecture and engineering, an architectural engineering situation, hopefully, and that guided my university applications. So I think there's definitely words to say for people who knew what type of degree or what type of course they were going into. Interestingly for me, many of the schools that eventually ended up choosing me didn't necessarily offer an architectural engineering program the way that I wanted. The University of Michigan, for instance, does not. But what they do have is a civil engineering program whose ethos is more focused on community planning, community-based, public planning, public policy, along those lines. And I think that also sort of resonated with me. I knew I wanted to do a degree that would have an impact in the way that I could come back to the continent and leave an impact in that sort of way as well. And so that's also what cemented my decision to come to the University of Michigan, because its engineering department had an ethos. We call it people first engineering here, where it's centered around the needs of people and how we can use, not to sound too abstract or whatever, but how we can use engineering as truly a way to help define people's lives. And so I think that's what really resonated with me and ended up solidifying my decision here, that it wasn't just to say that I left or graduated as an engineer, but that I graduated with a degree that I really think could leave the impact that I wanted to leave. And so I think if that's something that anybody here in the chat really feels that they're inclined to do or really feels that they're set to do, I think they should not undermine that and let that also be a fueling part of their decision, university decision.
Thank you so much, Ayayi. So on to our next question, if I could throw this out to the panel. How did going to WK or IB in specific help you prepare socially, emotionally, mentally, and physically for university? Phoebe, why don't you start us off?
I would say that, okay, the emotional, mental, I'm not sure about all of that, but I will say academically, IB does gear you up for university. A lot of the panelists today are doing dual degree programs or double majoring, and I'm doing that as well. And that just entails a lot of academic reading. And I think just having a backbone of IB and having a backbone of coursework and also like written assessment is really beneficial to have in university. And I would also add that going to WK offers so many opportunities, not just volunteering opportunities, but also leadership opportunities, which I would say reflects really well just in your professional development when you're in interviews, when you're writing up a CV or applying for internships. It's really beneficial to know that you do have an international network and you have had opportunities to lead Women's Week, Pride Week, be head of a society, a community. Like that's not offered in a lot of institutions before university. So I would say taking advantage of that is something that WK offers. Has been really beneficial. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. Felice, would you care to add anything?
Yeah, I think if I could add, it would also just be a repetition of what Phoebe was saying. I think in terms of academics, IB really, and just the culture at WK really just does set you up for university, because I remember in my first year, I was intimidated by, the institution itself and just scared about, oh, UCT, everybody talks about it in a certain way. And so when I got here, in my first year, we're getting our assignments, we're getting, first years going and running. And I'm realizing that, actually, this is mimicking the style of assessment, the style of work pressure that we had when we got to experience an IB. So which ended up working to my advantage, because now I'm coming here, I'm equipped, I'm able to manage my time, I'm able to use the resources around me effectively, I'm able to properly engage with the material before me because I've had these skills I was equipped with in IB. So I think definitely it does set you apart, because even with just, when you are speaking to other people who came straight from high school, IGCSE or matric, they, you can tell that there is a difference in how you're able to mitigate some instances academically with your skills that you got from IB versus someone who did not. And so I think definitely it does help. And I think in the social aspect, just being at WK helped, expose you also just to a larger worldview. You don't come just thinking one way and having a narrow mind, or, not being able to change or grow. I think WK does foster an environment where you do realize that in order to, to grow as a person, in order to live, in a shared space with people, you need to allow yourself to be open-minded and keep that ability to engage with others effectively. And I think when I came to uni, it was those skills that I acquired then, which I realized were very effective here, because also you're meeting new people. It's a completely different place, and fostering and building these relationships and building these networks with people. And I think all those skills came in very handy, in as much as obviously when you leave IB, you don't come with a packet saying that these are the skills that I'm taking to uni with me, but you just see them unfolding in your everyday life, in your interactions, in the way that things map out. And you see that, oh, actually, when the teachers were saying that this is the experience of a lifetime, you actually start to see that, oh yeah, no, this is what they meant, because now you're seeing and how it's helping you navigate, this new environment that you're in. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Felice. And before we switch to the next person, I just wanted to throw another question out at you. Why did you decide to stay regional?
My decision was basically, I think I was lucky in the sense that I already knew what I wanted to do very early on. I always knew that I wanted to pursue my LLB. And so for me, on a practicality situation, going to the US wasn't really gonna be the way for me, especially because you had to go to liberal arts, then go to law school after the fact. But at the same time, I still did want to have the experience of, doing courses that speak to my passions and that I really want to do besides just law. And so I did end up doing a combined degree. So I did, politics and governance and law as a separate degree. And then now I'm just doing the LLB. So I just think my decision was primarily based on the fact that I had an idea of what I knew pretty early on. And so I knew that South Africa for me was the best option, was the best place for me to do that. Also, I just think I wasn't keen on being so far from home. I wanted at least to be far enough from home where my parents can't just show up randomly. But at the same time, I can go home, on a weekend where I feel like I just need to be at home, Whereas being in the US, I just felt like it was going to be too far for me. It didn't allow me that sort of freedom and fluidity. So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much, Felipe. And that's just for anyone that's thinking of staying a bit more regional. I think that was very insightful. Namambo, I saw that you raised your hand for the previous question. Would you care to add anything?
Yeah, I wanted to add specifically because something that Felicia touched on made me think about the fact that obviously I go to the university in the USA, and Waterford is a very idealistic bubble where you're exposed to like-minded people. You're able to interact with people in a way that allows you to foster discussion and to learn from each other and grow. However, one of the things that I realized when I came to the US is that the mentality that fosters discussion at Waterford does not translate into the Western world. Not to say that everyone here is, how can I put this? Not to say that everyone here is mean or may not be as progressive as you are, but I think it's worth just noting to yourself that some of the discussions that may have been more easier and more to have at Waterford may not be as easy to have when you get to the USA. And I think that's just a difference in overall culture. A lot of different issues in the US are very heavily politicized. Something that may just be an opinion that you have to yourself may not garner the best reaction when you bring it up in a conversation that you may not be willing to, that you may have not intended to make as a big of a deal. So I will say that I personally have had a really great experience. I think it's about finding your people and finding your space and realizing one thing I've had to realize, because I've always been a very, I always want to debate. I always want to like at least find some common ground, but not everyone deserves your energy and your time and your voice. And it's important to realize that some battles just aren't yours to fight, and you will definitely not be able to change everyone else's mindset. And that's fine, and that's amazing. And use your energy sparingly and wisely.
Thank you so much, Namambo. I hope everybody in the chat was listening because I think that was very impactful information. And just to throw a question back at you, Namambo, since there are multiple people, other WK alumni at Lake Forest, did this improve your college life in any way? How does this help you deal with homesickness and things of the sort?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I was initially applying to university, I was not against going to a school with a lot of WK alumni, but I wanted to explore a school that maybe didn't have that many. Evidently, that didn't work out because Lake Forest sold itself to me in a different way. But I think that being here as long as I have now, I'm a junior, I'm in my third year. I think having the connection and having not only WK alumni on campus, but in the Chicago area has been incredibly helpful. There's small things like when you come to the US, you have to do taxes, and taxes are not fun. It's tax season right now. And just having the ability to speak to someone else that gets it has been very, very helpful. As well as one of the things that I think that no one thinks about when they consider a school that has a large Waterford population is that because there was so many people from WK here, they had already built relationships with staff members, administration, that I was able to then tap into. And then I was able to have a better chance of then getting in with professors that were more willing to help us or had more time or were more interested in like learning more about us, specifically because Waterford had such a good reputation based on what the other students had been able to create. And I think that, and also small things like I'll be completing an internship in Chicago over the summer, and I've been searching for housing, and the Waterford alumni that are in the area have been very, very helpful. And I think that it's not necessarily the same when you're in a different state. So I will say that be open-minded to going to school with like a huge Waterford presence. It's very, very lovely. I see everyone almost every single day, and I honestly really enjoy just being able to have a familiar face walk by every 20 minutes.
Thank you, Namambo. And Thomas, how is it being in the Netherlands, having very few WK students, as you were one of the few students attending university in Europe at the time?
Yeah, it's not always easy, as sometimes you can't relate to people culturally, and especially being so far away from home. But luckily, I have found other Southern Africans here, and I've become quite good friends with them. I mean, some of my best friends, I mean, often people you are like, you attract. And I've quite a few South African friends here, which is like amazing just to talk about home and like how much you miss Nando's or just anything in general. And yeah, but I also think that, so I kind of had sort of a similar mindset that I kind of wanted to go to a school where maybe there aren't as many WK people, just to, because I felt like it would crowd me out a bit. I don't know what that's like, obviously, because I have no one here, and I kind of do miss. I wish I did have maybe one or two other WK students here. But yeah, it is hard if you, I think, if you don't have anyone who you can relate to in that sense. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And a similar question to Tema. How is it being in the US in terms of similar things like homesickness and such?
Um,
Sorry, Tema, we cannot hear you. All right, let's just give Tema a few minutes. Aye, would you care to pitch in the meantime?
Sure. Just to clarify, the question is, what exactly are we answering now?
So the question is, how is it being in the US, which is a place that a lot of people do tend to go from WK, but in terms of like homesickness, how do you cope with that? Do you meet up with maybe other WK alumni, things of the sort?
Right. So I seem to have had a different experience. I go to a university that does not have a large Waterford community here. I think that has its pros and cons. It seems that everybody sort of starts with the aspiration of going to a school with not that large of a population, and then sort of finds their way. I personally came to Waterford in IB1, and so I also sort of had this, I was part of the new IB cohort. So in that transition, that I came to a new country, new school, and I found it really refreshing. I really enjoyed that, fresh slate, start a fresh sort of beginning. And so I wanted to mimic that in my university life, not necessarily because I did enjoy my Waterford experience. I thoroughly did, but I also just wanted to expand my networks. I wanted to meet people beyond the bubble that I'd already found. What I did find here at Michigan was that while I don't have a big Waterford community, the UWC community is large, regardless of wherever you go. And so I feel I still have met a couple of people who are from the from the UWC network here. And I think with the opportunity of not going to a place that's heavily compounded with other Waterfordians, I think it's also given me the chance to really find new connections and find new relationships. I think I'm relating to people not just on a UWC level, but relating to people who are African or who are also international students in a different way. And I think that's also been very refreshing for me. I mean, there's obviously definitely the downsides of having to start afresh and having to really find your footing again. You have to I think it was Namambo who had said that the previous students had said a good background for you to step in. I sort of now have to be those students who make that good background for people to step in. But I think it's been an experience I wouldn't change for the world. So, all right.
Thank you so much, Felipe, I see that you've raised your hand. Is there anything you'd care to add?
Yes, I just want to piggyback off of Aye's experience about, coming to university where there isn't that great of a UWC community that exists. And I think maybe I think it's important to kind of figure that out for yourself before you make a decision as to which university that you're going to go to. Because I think for me, one of the selling points for UCT was the fact that there wasn't really that much of a big UWC presence. And primarily, I knew that, well, I wanted to put myself in an environment where I would be forced to grow. And I felt like if I carried along the people that I was with throughout high school into the same university space now, I felt that there would have been little room for me to actually grow and figure out, like, outside of the UWC or WK bubble, like, who am I? Like, what do I want? What are my interests? Whereas I feel like now, because I've had to kind of start from the ground up and kind of figure that for myself, it really forced me to, do the work and also just create an environment for myself and an experience for myself in the university space that I think would have looked much differently had it been that I had a lot of those, my UWC friends here. Not to say that there weren't moments that it didn't suck, that, everyone else is far. I can't call anyone, we can't meet up on days where, I'm struggling to make friends or whatever. But I think, in due time, it does pay off, because you do see that, like, actually this was a necessary break for me, to find myself. Because I think Namambo was the one who mentioned about the bubble that we had at WK. I think it just also sold an experience that, would always have, those same people everywhere we went. And I think, real life, isn't like that. You're not going to carry everybody that you know with you everywhere. So you need to know how to find yourself and establish and make roots for yourself, outside of everybody else. And I think that's also really important in choosing a university, just like also just choosing a space where you feel like this will challenge you, right? And obviously what will challenge you differs from person to person. For me, was the social aspect, that I didn't want to find myself in the same routine that I had at WK, but to break from that and then build from that as well. So I think that's also just an important consideration to have when choosing a university.
Thank you so much, Felipe. Tama, so we can come back to you now. I see you raised your hand.
Is it working now?
It is, thank you.
Okay, great. I think I like what Felice said about knowing what challenges you. Because similarly, I was like, I'm gonna choose a large university because I don't want to be seeing WK people. But coming here, I realized what I wanted is different from what I needed. I do need to see someone. I do need a familiar face every now and then. I know I wanted this whole idea of, I don't want to be around, WK people, but actually it's quite refreshing to see a familiar face. And with the whole, sometimes, yes, being with like other WK people can stifle your growth. But I feel like for me, it hasn't stifled my growth. It actually has motivated me to do more, because I have friends who encourage me to do more. And you see other people in the community like getting leadership positions, and you want to do that as well. Also, I think it being such a large university, I have my friends, but I'll probably see them like once every 2 weeks because it's such a large university. So I think there's also that. You will meet new people regardless. You're going to meet new people in student organizations that you get involved in. You're going to meet new people at your job, your workplace. You're going to meet new people in classrooms. You're going to meet new people in study groups. So I think meeting new people happens regardless, you know. So most people, when they come to university, I found that they seek community and they want to belong somewhere. They want to belong in a space. They want to find their people. So coming to OU, definitely I already had a community presence. And we Southern Africans were actually so large, such a large number, to the point where we created a student organization called the Association of Southern African Students. So the Zimbabweans, South Africans, Swatis, Namibians, and all of that. And we just come together and we celebrate our culture. And we also invite people to experience what Southern Africa is all about. So that really created a place of like, wow, these are my people, you know, a place I call home, a place I can go to. And they definitely, like, this information loop that is created in this organization definitely helps. I know one of the panelists mentioned like doing taxes. I had no idea that taxes was a thing that had to be done. So coming here and having a senior be like, hey, I can show you how to do your taxes, or hey, there's this campus restaurant, you should definitely go there, or hey, don't go to this job, don't even apply to this job, choose this one instead, or I can refer you to my job. Having connections like that really helps. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tema. So what I gained from this, above all the insightful things you shared, everyone be wary about your taxes. Next, can we please have Phoebe talk about maybe internships or work opportunities around you in the UK?
Oh yeah, I can speak about that. I've been applying for internships over these last few weeks. I think one of the benefits of studying in a big city is, yes, it's very expensive, but also the rewards are quite high. And just being in London and trying to work in the legal profession, there's a lot of opportunities, not just in like corporate law, and when you're doing like mergers and acquisitions, you can also do some humanitarian work. There's lots of charities and volunteering opportunities. And I think when considering what uni you want to apply for, it's really important to look at the career support and know that career support is available to you after you graduate, before you graduate. It's consistently available for practice interviews, to go over your CV, your supporting statements for different internship roles. And also just within universities, you should look out for any scholarship opportunities, because a lot of these international universities will have scholarships which may offer work experience opportunities, research opportunities. Hopefully they pay you a stipend every week. Like, there's a lot of ways you can make money. And I think it's just another appealing factor of considering going to university in a big city, even if you lose the campus aspect and it's a little faster and you have to come to grips with public transport. I do think there's a lot of just mobility that comes with that professionally.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. And just to throw another question back at you, what about in terms of taxes, since this seems to be something that is a big topic in this Zoom?
Yeah, taxes in the UK, at least if you're a student, you are pretty much exempt from a lot of the big taxes. For example, I live in a studio apartment. Right now, I don't pay any taxes on my rent because you apply for a tax exemption. That's something you should also be aware of. Even if you don't pay taxes, sometimes you need to do the bureaucratic process of letting them know that you're not paying taxes and you're not paying a TV license and you're not paying electricity. But yeah, I think universities and hopefully your landlords should keep you involved. Taxes are scary, but don't worry, you will be told when you need to do them. You will get emails either from the government, you'll get them in the post. It's okay. And you can study law. There's a lot of online free courses just for basic provisions when you're moving to a different country, because your visa is dependent on you being law abiding.
Thank you, Phoebe. Would someone else from a different continent possibly like to touch on the topic? Maybe Thomas or Felice?
I think similarly to Phoebe, as a student in South Africa, you're pretty much exempt also from taxes. The only tax situation that happens is if you find work, and it's not an exorbitant, and it's not it's not an exorbitant amount that you're taxed, and also the tax is just pre-calculated also in whatever remuneration you'll be getting. So it's not something that you need to actively be like counting or setting up. But I think also in the line of work, you know, in South Africa, you are very limited. I'm not sure exactly how it works in the US, but you are very limited insofar as what you can and cannot do as a student. So like, I mean, but there are jobs available. It's just that those jobs themselves, however little they pay or however great they pay, they will be taxed. But it's not something as scary as what I've heard about the taxes in the US. So I think there's that difference. Yeah.
Thank you, Felice. And over to you, Nombo.
Yeah, first I want to apologize. I didn't mean to make the taxes thing as scary as it's been. It isn't too bad. I think I've done my taxes for about 3 years now, and I promise like it makes sense. Like once you do it once, it's kind of like repetition, everything gets saved. And I think that that's also just like a note to my school, because Lake Forest pays for a tax service that they offer to all international students, because we can't use TurboTax. It's a tax platform that many Americans use. We can't use those platforms. So it's great that the school then offers us like this platform that they pay for, and we don't have to pay them back or anything. And that's really been helpful. And just to touch on the jobs and internships aspect, the main reason why I chose to come to Lake Forest is because it has one of the best career centers in the US for a small liberal arts college. And I think that obviously looking at university, you're looking at your majors and what you want to do in life. But I think a lot, to some extent, maybe not too much early on, but you could be considering where you want that degree to then take you. And I think that the beauty about Lake Forest is the career services department is absolutely amazing. I think I mentioned I will be completing an internship this summer in Chicago, and that internship I got through my career advisor and an alumni, and that was really, it made the interview process very, very seamless. And in terms of jobs as well, in the United States or international students aren't allowed to work off campus. I didn't know that before coming. I had a dream of working at Starbucks. I wanted to make my own caramel frappuccino. I could not do that because I had to work on campus. And that's something that I didn't realize before. And I think this is where you have to reach out to the students that are at the colleges that you're looking at, because not every university has the same minimum wage payment. And that's something that is very important to consider, especially depending on where you end up location-wise. I'm in Chicago. It's the third largest city in the US. It's very expensive. And luckily, we were recently able to get our minimum wage raised to about $11 an hour. But at the same time, the US government does not want you to win. So we're still cut off at only working 20 hours a week. So I'm not earning a lot of money, but because the school was able to give a higher minimum wage, it's enough to get me by. So I will say that reach out to WK alumni at the different colleges, ask them things like, how much are you getting paid? Are the jobs nice? Because those are the things that will matter to you the most when you finally get there.
Thank you, Namambo. So guys, please, what I'm hearing is fear taxes, but at the same time, do not fear taxes. It's not that bad. I saw that you raised your hand.
I did. I just wanted to comment on the working on jobs aspect, but I think Namambo really covered a lot of the things I wanted to say. As she said, with international students, we can only work on campus for a limited number of hours. But I mean, for me, for myself and the other international students, I think that does limit our options, yes. But what I find is that when we eventually needed to do our tax and our tax forms and things, a lot of the things were documented because the university just operates that way. It has information and it keeps records of everything. So the process was relatively seamless in that aspect because I didn't need to ask my manager if I'd worked at the Starbucks off campus or that situation. But I will say too, there is not a loophole, but an added clause to that I believe that you can work in an organization if it's within the campus building. So we have Panera, Panera is similar to Starbucks. It's like a cafe sort of place, and that's within one of our school buildings. And so I know a couple of people who work there as well. And I think that's the great thing, or one of the pluses of coming to school here in the United States, is that you get the opportunity to work. And that can feel, I was initially a little hesitant about working. I was worried about, spending time between working and studying and that sort of thing. But I think it really, it's so important to have some sort of like financial independence. Although you may not be paying huge bills with, the money we work, we're still earning minimum wage with our jobs. But I think it's really important to have that sort of income on your own, at least for me initially, because whenever I needed to buy something, or when I needed to go to concerts, or when I needed to do things for myself, I didn't need to phone my parents all the way back my parents who live in South Africa now, to send me money. I could have just worked a couple of hours. And I think it just restructures the way you view things. You're like, okay, I want to go on this trip for spring break. I need to work. I need to save money for that. And it just changes the way you think about things. And so I think it's definitely a huge plus with moving here and having this level of independence, that certain things I need to ask, but certain things I can sort of project and sort of save up for. And I think that's been a huge plus with being a student here and being an international student here as well.
Thank you so much, IA. And before we continue on with this question, I just wanted to throw out to the audience that we do have Waterford Kamhlaba University ambassadors. And if you need to reach out to any university you're interested in, please contact Joanne, the Alumni Engagement Officer of the Advancement Office, and she will help you out with that. And before we move on from the question, could we please have Thomas and Mbali add a little bit of 2 cents on this topic?
I could actually add something regarding working opportunities. My experience with Canadian universities is slightly different to most international students, only because this is my home country. But from what I know, for international students, you are free to work anywhere, as long as you are a full-time student and you have your study permit, which is something that is different to the US. So it does give a lot of opportunities for students to work pretty much anywhere with anyone, which can be helpful. My experience with working was, I didn't particularly enjoy it, and not just because I'm sure a lot of people don't actually enjoy their jobs, but it was more the fact that I'm someone who quickly gets overwhelmed when I have too many other things to do. And I guess it's also a privilege to be able to just focus on my school as well. And I know some people might not have that privilege to be able to just focus on their studies. But I think before you even decide to work anywhere, I think it's really important to ask yourself if you can actually take that on, because at the end of the day, everyone is going there to study and to get your degree at the end of the day. And that is what is most important to you. But it does help greatly to have that extra money on the side that you don't have to ask anybody about. And it's just there for you to just spend on whatever it is that you like. And it is something to consider as well when you're picking your universities. Definitely consider the financial aspect of things, how much you're paying for your fees, how much you're paying in the city, if you're going to a big city. All of those things are really important for you to think about, because that also contributes to your happiness, whether people believe in it or not. It's really something that can really change your experience at university. If you are constantly stressed about money, you are going to be stressed about school and you're not going to be well. So definitely before you make any sort of decision, be honest about how much it'll cost you to even attend that university. You don't want that burden to be on your parents, and especially more so on yourself. So just, yeah, beware of those kind of things.
Okay, I'll just touch on a bit about some intern opportunities, working, and taxes in the Netherlands. So firstly, when it comes to working, international students can work. You do have to get a work permit, which isn't too tricky. I mean, the student service center here makes it quite easy, as they help you through the process if you do want to, or so I've been told. And I don't think you capped on the number of hours you can work as well, which is quite handy. In terms of internship opportunities, there are quite a lot of internship opportunities here in the Netherlands, in Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And there are quite a few companies, firms who we have, I'm speaking more for the business school now, I'm not too sure about other faculties, but we'll have business days where you can go and apply for internships, and you can have interviews from there, etc. So there definitely are opportunities for that. In terms of taxes, I do a lot of online work, so I don't really have to fill in any tax or Dutch tax. The income tax here is really high, but as I'm sure as a student, well, just from, I know friends at work, they don't pay much tax at all. I mean, it'll probably be 15, 10, 5% around there. And I don't think the process of filling your taxes out is very difficult either. So yeah, that's a little insight on that here in the Netherlands.
Thank you so much, Thomas, and the rest of the panelists. So if the audience has any questions, could you please just raise your hand, and you can then ask out loud. I will give you guys a few minutes to just gather yourselves.
So I have a question. In terms of healthcare in your respective countries where you're studying, especially in the US, how does that work for an international student?
Okay, thank you, Elena. Does anyone want to touch on this, or can I just pick you at random? Okay, Felice, please take it away.
I think I can speak for South Africa and say that if you're coming to study in South Africa as a non-South African student, one of the requirements for your study permit is for you to have medical aid. Otherwise, you won't even be allowed to register at the university. And so because of that, I guess it is a disadvantage to some, but I think if you're able to have access to getting a medical aid, then definitely, because it does go a long way. The medical aid aspect of it, because when you're paying for your study permit, it covers pretty much everything, well, the basics. So your dental, your eyesight, and a basic hospital visit. If it's anything that were to exceed the benefits granted in your medical aid, then you'd have to pay cash, because also the medical aid that you can get is strictly a student medical aid. So you can't use like a different one unless it's acceptable in South Africa. So I think in comparison to what I've heard in different countries, it's okay. It's manageable. The healthcare situation this side, it's pretty manageable, also because the fees aren't as exorbitant as you'd find in other places. So I think in that sense, South Africa is doing pretty okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Felice. Tama, would you care to share from American perspective?
Well, not so much American, but OU side of things. With the healthcare, we have health insurance that is part of your scholarship at OU. So it covers your basic things like your flu meds and some lab tests. We have like a clinic on campus. So you see how like back at WK you go to the nurse. Here we have like a clinic like that, but better. Yeah, I've been there quite a few times to do some lab testing and all of that. And it just goes to your bursa, which is paid for by your scholarship. However, if you have a condition that requires things like surgery, that is not covered in your scholarship, and you would have to pay that out of pocket. What else? I think getting a pair of glasses as well, or like eyesight conditions would have to be out of pocket. The insurance covers like your basic things. And also if you ever do come this side, unless it's a matter of life and death, do not call the ambulance. It is very, very expensive. Yeah, so we do have health insurance at OU. You'll be taken care of.
Thank you, Tema. Namambo, over to you.
Yeah, so Lake Forest works similarly to what Tema just said. I just wanted to state that at Lake Forest specifically, our health center does also offer therapists and psychologists that you can see for free as well. And I think that's really lovely. I know some people that use those services and quite enjoy them. Also to add on to Tema's point about health insurance, our school does it a bit differently. We have an external provider that the school can enroll you with, but you have to choose to. You can look for a different healthcare provider. However, you have to have it done by a certain day to meet the requirements, because like in South Africa, it's a requirement for international students to have healthcare. And I think it's pretty standard in the US for dental and eyesight to not be covered by health insurance. It's an add-on, not just for international students, but for most health insurances. So I would say that probably check your teeth before you come if there's anything wrong. But the eyesight, because I do wear glasses, and there's various different online websites that help with that. I get my glasses from a website called Zenny. It's about $9. It's very affordable. And I feel like it just goes to the whole having to just navigate your way through being here, like finessing some systems and just trying to figure out what works best for you. That's what I'd say about healthcare.
Thank you guys so much for the advice on healthcare. I see Jaden has their hand up if you would like to speak out and ask your question.
Okay, my question is related to the application process. So for your university application, what would you say was the most important section of your application besides your grades? Like, what do you think was almost a silver bullet that got you into the university that you did? And also related to that question is, do you think that it's necessarily important for people to, apply to university based on the clout of the university, basically? Because I know at our age, lots of us don't have a really big idea of university. So you obviously go to the really well-known ones, which are usually the hardest to get into. But I was going to ask you, like, what type of person do you think would need to maybe go into that university? Because obviously it isn't the right fit for everyone. But if someone is trying to apply to it, what do you think would be the pros of going to, like, a more well-known school than others? Or is it even that important in the first place? And maybe you can talk about that from different majors' standpoint as well.
Thank you, Jaden. We'll have Mbali start and then Phoebe afterwards.
Your first question about like what part of the application other than your grades are really important. I think definitely how you answer your essay questions would be really important. And if you have the opportunity to have interviews or any sort of, I know for some of the programs that I applied to, like involving business schools, sometimes they ask you to write something or to submit like a video of you speaking about why you want to get into the major that you want to go into. I think really having good answers for that, personal answers, not something that you feel like a lot of people would share in common with you. Just get very personal and very honest about who you are, and don't be afraid to show them that. And then I would also say, in terms of like going to a big school, University of Toronto is the #1 school in Canada. And I think it's one of those things that when you're here, you kind of see why it's also a nice thing to go to a big school, mainly because of the type of professors that you're exposed to on a daily basis. If you're someone who wants to go into research, it's something that can be very, very beneficial to you to go to a university where you have world-renowned professors, because you get to work closely with them, you get to get recommendations from them, and it really opens doors for you once you are now in the working field. And I would say as well that having the clout of a university, I guess like I'm yet to see for myself once I leave, but I think it's one of those things where it can help, like it can help in general when you're looking for jobs or anything like that. But I would say that don't be too caught up with it, because at the end of the day, this is an undergraduate degree. And so you have the chance to go to a big name school when you're getting your master's if you want. And it's not something that you have to be so obsessed with right now, because in the grand scheme of things, everyone graduates with the same, it's a university degree. So it doesn't really matter where it's from. You have your qualification, and you going to a more world-renowned school doesn't prove you any more worthy than someone who got a degree from somewhere else. So I think don't be too, if you can and you get in, congratulations, and that's great. But if you don't stress about it like that. It's not that big of a deal. You can have an opportunity in your master's, or, you know, even then in your master's, it doesn't really matter too much. But I don't think it's something that will necessarily change your life so drastically that you won't be able to have amazing opportunities. It's all up to you and how you take advantage of your university's resources. So.
Yes, I agree with everything Mbali said, in that your university is not your end all be all, but I would also say that it's okay to want nice things, and it's okay to want to go to a university that maybe requires quite a few IB points or is quite fancy on paper, because at the end of the day, reputations do mean a lot. And I think they mean more depending on the industry you're trying to get into. And I speak as someone who's in a more traditional, like I'm doing law, like it's a very competitive industry. And if you're in a big city, there's a lot of other universities and people are going to have the same degrees as you, and you will be in the same interviews as them. And sometimes having the recognition of a nicely branded school can really help. And I think another thing that comes with just going to a more renowned university is just expenditure and resources, because if you go to a university with more resources, chances are that your research may be funded, your volunteering may be reimbursed, your transport may be reimbursed, and you may also have access to maybe a network of people who are working at more higher reaching places within the industry that you're trying to get into. I would say that it isn't the end all be all, but I do believe that it really depends on you as a person, and you should just be very honest with yourself about the outcomes that you want for your life and what you're realistically trying to achieve with your undergraduate degree. And if you are in a more traditional field like law, there's only so many years to decide kind of what's going to happen, and you do have to have quite a solid idea from the get-go. So I will say that that's important, but the downside of that, of course, is going to one of these schools, they will be academically rigorous. It's not just in writing, it is in practice. They will demand a lot of you. You will write a lot of essays and do a lot of research, and they will push you to a limitation. But again, if you're open to learning and you have a defined intention about what you'd like your future to look like, I do think it's worth applying to a school that is quite far-reaching and quite fancy because why not? You get rejected, you might get in. I think it's an adventure either way.
Thank you, Phoebe. And before I hand it over to the three panelists that have their hands raised, I would just like to quickly say, may we keep the answers a bit shorter, maybe like a quick 30 seconds, just so we can get through the other questions. Thank you. Namambo, please take it away.
Sure. I think my point is pretty brief. I just wanted to state that there's obviously different reputations that different colleges on the Davies list have at Waterford, but I think it's very important to throw that all out of your mind. Because when you come to the US, I think every school has its own reputation that you never even knew of before you got here. And all the schools that are on that list are incredible schools. The small liberal arts colleges are regarded in very high prestige in the various different states that they're in. And I think that that offers you the chance to maybe access people that you may have never thought you would have a chance to access. For example, from Lake Forest specifically, I do know that a lot of the people that graduate with finance, economics majors end up working at big names like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, international students too. And I think that that kind of shows you a different like aspect of reputation and prestige that you may not always see. Because at the end of the day, when you do come here, you are going to a private liberal arts college with quite wealthy American students, because it's not really cheap to go here if you're international or if you're American. So I do think that while prestige is more visible when you're out of the US for like schools like Harvard and Yale, when you do come to the US, you realize, well, at least I realized from being at Lake Forest, that the recognition that the school has within the state of Illinois and the doors that like have been able to open up for me because I go to the school were doors that I probably wouldn't have thought would have been possible, because I thought, oh, maybe that's for the more prestigious schools. And yeah.
I think in just a response to, I believe it was the first question about the essays and what you think is what made you stand out and the university eventually deciding to select you. I think the essays are such a pivotal part of the application. And I say this because I was definitely, when I was applying, I was also had love hearts in my eyes. I was definitely looking at the universities that were big and prestigious. And so I think a lot of my list, while I had the typical, you know, the reaches, the safeties, the ones that were at my points, I think I only really looked at the universities that were prestigious in the Davies list. And so what I found when I was going back into my application process was that my essays on why this school, why do I choose this school, weren't really authentic. They were just sort of, I could easily tell that I was just applying to this school because it had the name brand. And that's something you definitely do not want to do. You want to have a list that every single one of your schools is a school that you would end up going, that if it ended up being that your safety school is the school that you're going to go, that is the school you should be comfortable with going. So I found myself in the situation where I got into my safeties. I didn't get into as many of my reaches. I ended up getting into the safeties, but it was something that I still was reluctant to go into. And that was a clear telling of something that I didn't give enough thought into my list, that it should be the case that every single school should be a school that I was eager to go to and a school that I definitely wanted to go to. So I think with that, with the application, the point is to truly understand the nature of the schools and to really define what it is about the school that you like beyond just the name brand and beyond just the prestige that comes with it. University of Michigan, for instance, is not necessarily a school that you would think ranks with, you know, the Harvard and the Ivy League and that sort of thing. But I would say it was one of the few schools that I actually genuinely liked for what it was. And I liked for what the department was looking for. The department was looking for community builders, was looking for leaders, and was spurring on students in that sort of way. And I think that's one of the few essays that I wrote authentically. And I think eventually that's what ended up being the deciding factor. And so I think that's something I would recommend. And in the end, the University of Michigan, while it may not have the the prestige of a name, it's no doubt a prestigious school. Whenever I mention it within the state, within the Midwest region here, it carries a lot of backing, with the added effect of it being a school that I genuinely liked and a school that I'm genuinely happy to be here. So I think that's definitely something I would advise anyone in the application process, to make sure that every school that you're applying to is a school that you genuinely want to go to, and you'll never be disappointed with whatever outcome comes out of it.
Okay, 30 seconds, let's go. What is more important? I work with admissions for UWC students at the university. So usually what they like kind of prioritize, like personal statements and your interaction with the university. Are you sending them emails? Are you asking, be interested? Are you asking questions? Are you setting up interviews with them? So that is the silver lining other than my grades. University for clout, I would say choose a uni that will support you in your growth, because what's the point of clout if you're always stressed and you're always frustrated and you're depressed? Bye. That is all.
Thank you so much, Emma. So we do have a few other questions rolling in, but because we are a bit over time, I would just ask everyone to refer all their questions to Joanne, the Alumni Engagement Officer, using the alumni.engagement@waterford.sc email, just so we can wrap this up. But I do want to say that I think we have come to an end. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been lovely hosting you all. I'm sure that the IB 2s and 3s have gained a lot of insight and have gained good advice for their IB journeys ahead. I just want to say have a lovely day and night to everyone. And again, please do email Joanne if you have any further questions. Thank you all for having me.